Boom. And we're live, baby. Ooh. And we're live, baby. Yo, what's up, everybody? Yo, this is the 46th episode of the In Your Face show. And I'm here with my main man, Preston Squire, man. How are you today?
I am good. Thank you. Coming to you from Toronto, Canada, or just outside, about an hour outside of there.
Right. How's your day going, man?
You know what? My day's going really well. It's going really well. It's been this week it's been a little bit hectic, but it's good. It's good hectic. You know what I mean?
Right. So today we're gonna do it a little different here. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna do it a little different. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna build this thing, and we're gonna take this thing, we're gonna toss it up, and then we're gonna round it up again. Yeah. So I wanna know, about your book that you've been talking to me about. Brute. What is the Brute all about?
Okay, so Brute follows the main character. Actually follows a group of characters, but let's start with the title character, Brute, who is, if you can imagine, you're like Dwayne Johnson, you're the biggest, toughest guy around. You're used to always getting your own way, even though you're a nice guy, but you're kind of accustomed to always getting your own way because you are the biggest, strongest guy around. You got a bit of a self-esteem issue because you never got, typical daddy issues. You never got the love you needed. And
Right.
so, you got your strengths to rely on, though. That's kind of your fallback. And he's got some anger issues, but it's all good. It's all good because he's the biggest guy around until he gets off world. And then he happens to look like a cute little teddy bear. And he hates it. He hates it. That's not how he sees himself. He's still the biggest, toughest guy around. But of course, nobody takes him seriously now. But here's the thing. He looks this way because he's from a high gravity world. So he's short, he's dense, and he's super strong. So he is the toughest guy in any room. So you do not mess with Brute.
I would say in our world, we call him a short little bastard. But hey.
You probably would. And he'd take out your kneecap.
Hell yeah. Kneecaps, you know what I'm saying? Little midget motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I get what you said, though. I get what you're saying. I like the concept. You know what I'm saying? Because it reminds me of the way he looks reminds me of Winnie the Pooh. But a little meaner one.
A little bit meaner, yeah. Like a
little bit meaner. And blue. So, where did you get the idea of a Brute?
It's funny because the original idea for Brute and all of these characters, because I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So, the whole story of Brute, the theme for the whole series, is really just about broken people coming together and forming a dysfunctional family, trying to do the right things in life, not always succeeding, but muddling their way through, tripping themselves up more than most anything else. But eventually, finding their place in society, finding themselves, and in the end, becoming somebody special, right? But it's all about the journey from the brokenness where we all start off in life, because we all have some kind of past trauma. We're all kind of mixed up. It's not like, you see in most of the comics, where people are just like, I've got a power, so I'm going to save the world. No, these guys aren't like that. These guys are just trying to live their life, right? They're just become a group of bounty hunters, and they're just trying to find fame, fortune, and enough fuel to get to their next job. It's just the struggle of it. And they want to do the right things, but sometimes for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they go about it the wrong way. So they're good people, but they're not necessarily the most noble of people. But it's all about that journey, going through life, figuring it out, being that band of brothers and sisters, that are seeing it through to the end, even though sometimes you just want to knock the guy out. So where I got the idea, so now I'm going to get back to your question. I originally came up with most of these characters in this series while I was DMing an RPG way back in the 1990s. So the people who were playing the game, the player characters, if you will, I'm not sure if you're familiar with RPGs like D&D.
Yeah, like RPGs like Doom and all those games and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember the games like that.
Some dragons. I mean, they're big now again. They went out and now they're back. So, all the people playing, they had their characters, and then you have the people they fight against. And then I introduced like another group that weren't villains, but they had to compete against in order to get to the prize. Right. So Brute and Rose and Vanguard and all the characters that we meet in here, most of those all came from this, group that I created because it was such a fun group.
Right.
Characters that it was like, I got to do something with these guys because it's just too much fun. So that's where they came from. So, and the real benefit of that, because these guys have been kicking around in the back of my head since the 1990s, is that the universe that they're in now, because this is a space opera.
Hold on for a second, bro. Hold on for a second. Hold on. Take a second.
We got 3 issues out right now, 4th on the way.
My mistake. Sorry about that, everybody. That was my mistake. Had to go do something for my mother. She's being a big bugaboo. Anyway, so
I was saying, I mean, the advantage of having these ideas just kicking around the last 30 years is that the universe that they're in, because this is a space opera like Star Wars or Guardians of the Galaxy, or if you go way back, Buck Rogers kind of thing, it's very flushed out. We're talking like Lord of the Rings kind of detail where every race, everything's the history, everything is already figured out. So it's a very thought out universe that they're in. And unlike Star Trek or Star Wars or most any space comic you're ever going to read, there are no like one and done aliens. So you're never going to see an alien drawn in this one panel or in this one issue, and then you never see them again. Like, it happens all the time. If you see them once, there's the whole history behind them. There's politics, they have their area, the neighborhood of the galaxy. And eventually you're going to learn more about them. You're going to see more about them. You'll get to know how all these different races kind of interact and who likes who and who hates who and all the politics and everything that goes on. So, there's this whole intergalactic, a society going on in the background. Right. That's there, and so it's just kind of cool because as you're going through the series, you're like, oh yeah, you're getting to know them, right? They're becoming familiar. So that's one of the features that I like, and I know a lot of people who like sci-fi, they can really dig into that. They like that kind of depths to it.
Right. So what genre is the Brute franchise in?
So Brute is sci-fi space opera, is probably
Star Wars kind of thing,
Yeah, like Star Wars, where you kind of have this like there's history going on for thousands of years, and so it is that kind of used galaxy, as George Lucas kind of called it, where you're coming in mid. You're not coming in at the beginning of anything. You're coming in midway. So, and that's very true of these stories, is that we're meeting these characters kind of already midway in their journey.
Right.
And then, we kind of fill in a bit of the backstory as they go, but really we want to see where they're going from here.
Right.
And yeah.
Right. So, how do you feel about where the Brute, all three of your books, where do you feel your books are? Where do you feel do you feel that they're right where you want them to be, or do you feel that they need to be, that you still have room to grow and you still want to learn, or still want to build on it?
You never stop growing. You never stop learning. You never stop improving, because otherwise you're dead.
Right.
As long as you're still breathing,
right.
you got to still be working your craft and getting, trying to make it better. So each issue is definitely getting better. The writing's getting tighter. The dialogue's getting, better. The art, I'm not the artist. Owen Keenan is the artist. And his work is getting better and better every issue. It's making like leaps and bounds. So,
got us some music. 871 said, so Star Wars meets Repo, the generic opera.
You even got a Star Wars themed cover here on issue number 2.
I like it, actually. I like it because it's unique and it's original. And it's not something that's been done over and over again. It's something that, it got teddy bears in, and you can potentially, use it to get your children audience. Children
audience. We're not aiming it for children. That's not but because the main characters looks like a teddy bear and a young woman, we do realize that kids are going to read it. So we try to keep it like PG-13. There's some, alien cuss words. There's some drinking. These characters are not heroic. In a kind of Spider-Man, Superman, or even Batman kind of way. So. But yeah, we keep it PG, 13. So, if a kid's reading it, it's not going to be, there's no nudity in it. There's no gratuitous violence, and they're not going to pick up a whole catalog of swear words. Actually, they will, but no one's going to know what they're talking about. So it's okay.
Well, hey, shit, that's the space language. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Hey, that's cool. That's cool. So, where, how many people, showed Brute love? How many people really love this? Because I love the concept of it, and it's a book that reveals so much about the story, about how they became bounty hunters, went after it, all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
So, what about go
ahead. No, go ahead. Finish your question.
Okay. What about the bounty hunter part, right? Where do they go after space monsters, or do they go after, humans?
Well, humans have a very small role to play in this, but I'll get back to that. So, mostly they're going after, when it starts off in the early issues, and we're only at issue number 3 so far. In the early issues, they're not being very picky about who they go after.
Right.
So they'll take any bounty they can get and go after whoever, right? But and this is actually a problem for Brute, and we kind of see this in his backstory, which we get into in number 2, is that he gets off world, and on his own world he never really felt like he fit in. He always felt like an outsider, partly because he was this big, strong, burly guy with an attitude, on a planet mostly full of Care Bears, kind of, everybody's sweet, Bear, nice, and he's the odd one out. So he gets off world, he gets mixed up with these bounty hunters, and they cherish everything that made him feel like a pariah at home.
Right.
So now his strengths and his anger and his attitude are all seen as like huge pluses, and they're just encouraging him to be more of that and more of that, and eventually he crosses a line he can't take back.
True that.
And that sends him on a tailspin. And that's really where we kind of start this journey with him, is at this lowest point in his life where he's lost all sense of who he is.
Right.
So he didn't feel like he fit in at home. Now he's in the galaxy. He thought he fit in with the bounty hunters.
No, I'm talking about.
And now he's like just cross line, never thought he would, and so he's like, no, I don't want any part of that. But now he doesn't really know who he is or where he belongs, if he belongs anywhere. And,
okay.
And the story kind of starts off with the heroine of this, the series, Rose, who is a human, who's been abandoned in space. She gets abandoned on a space station, completely alien civilization. No way to, she's the only human there. She's only 14 years old, and she's just got to figure it out.
Right.
No one to help her.
Right. Sorry about that. Goddess of Music said some aliens are going to get squashed. Nice. Hey, I told you it's a good story. Good story about aliens and all that stuff. Hold on for a second while I go up the steps.
Yeah. So I mean, Rose gets like so many wayward youths. She gets taken advantage of, and it's with Brute's help, she kind of gets out of a bad situation. And so they're both in the same situation where they're both kind of stranded in space. They both, don't really have any place of their own. And so this is really kind of a bonding thing for them that brings them together.
True that.
And the fact that he looks like a cute little macho teddy bear is,
right.
It's adorable to her. But he's got anger issues and she's got trust issues. And so there's this dynamic, so even though there's this stuff that bring them together, they've got just kind of an explosive relationship as well.
I like it. You make me want to buy one. I haven't bought none in a while, man.
Groupcomic.com.
Groupcomic.com. Yeah. So, how many characters, how many face characters are in this story?
So the main group, once we get them all together, it's going to be about 12. But I don't bring in all 12 at once, because I find books that do that, it's just overwhelming. You don't know any of them, and so you don't really care what happens to them. So I kind of bring them in a bit at a time. So the first issue, it's mostly about Rose and her journey, her getting abandoned, her having to learn how to survive, and meeting up with Brute. And then the second issue, we learn Brute's backstory, and we introduce another character as well. And in the third issue, it's a big action issue. Number 3 is just like all out action, but it kind of wraps up the first arc. And in the background, we're actually meeting a lot of the other characters. So there's 3 kind of core characters, or 4. There's 4 kind of core characters. So there's Brute, who's this good-natured but kind of wayward soul. Rose, who's really the heart of this team. She is kind of your social justice warrior, wants to do the right thing and save everybody. But yeah, she's got trust issues. She's very independent, very, very smart, but way too, because of that, those natures, her distrust of others and her independence, she tends to like go off on her own too much and try to do too much on her own. And I mean, you see that right off in like issue number 0, which I'll talk to a little bit about later. You have Vanguard, who is sort of your samurai type character. His whole society is all based on honor, very militaristic. His whole family's in the military. His family is a well-known, well-to-do family, and he has disgraced them. He's become the black sheep of the family. He's a disgrace. He's basically outed. And he is desperate to do something to restore his name. So, he's formed this group of bounty hunters with the hope of doing some kind of job that's so big, it's going to make everybody stand up and notice him and kind of restore his honor. But he's impulsive as all heck. And he's always getting everybody into all kinds of terrible situations because he rushes into them without thinking, and then he's got to figure out a way out. And then the 4th main character is a character called Rintax, who is, if you can imagine, Friar Tuck meets Jedi Knight meets Lord of the Rings Ent. So he's kind of like this plant-based character with these abilities, but there's more of religiousness to him than like what you'd see in Star Wars. So, because and anyway, so he comes in and he's part of this group, and he doesn't fit in because he's a pacifist, and these guys are of course all bounty hunters. So like, what the heck are you doing here? And he's trying to save their souls, and they don't want to be saved. So
yeah,
they don't take him seriously.
I know how that feels. Well, we all been disgraceful at some time or another. So with all the characters in Brute, right? Mm-hmm. What are the villains like? Where are the main villains like? Tell us about that.
So in the early issues, we follow the 2 main villains are George and Lenny. And yes, if you're familiar with Mice and Men, we took a page from there. Okay. So this is the cover for issue number 3, which is coming out shortly. This guy here, who kind of looks like a crab, is George, and this is his henchman Lenny, and then he's got some other guys here as well. And they're the ones who took advantage of Rose. And I don't want to give away the whole story. But Brute saves Rose and they want her back. And so, they're the conflict is henchmen are like 20 feet tall. So you got this 2-foot guy going against 3 guys who are 20 feet tall. So it's a fun conflict. And yeah, and it's a really interesting dynamic because in their minds, they're not villains. Brute's the villain.
Right.
In their minds, they've done Rose a favor. They saved her from this wayward life on the streets. They've done all these good things for her in his own mind, right? And now this guy Brute's gone and stolen his property, and he wants it back. So he's just looking after his own interests. He's not a villain in his mind, right? But of course, Rose is like, it's like, you stole years of my life, and Brute's just trying to help this girl who's like on the run. So that's the first kind of villains we meet. They get involved with some like intergalactic mafia, and later on we meet a cyborg character who is kind of a messiah character, in that he is saving the world by turning everybody into a cyborg so that they all are completely obedient to him.
Oh, man.
But it's an interesting concept because he's taken a society that has been at war, poverty, crime, all of those problems, and he solved it. Only requires you get this chip planted into your brain so you're subservient and do as you're told exactly, right? But a lot of people actually choose that life, so when he starts off, he kind of basically forms a church of cybernetics, and because people are so sick of war and crime and struggling and poverty and all these things, they choose his life. They choose to be converted into like a cyborg because it does give them this perfect life where there's no crime and there's no war and there's no struggling. And he just kind of slowly builds it up until he has enough of a critical mass that he says, well, I can just wait for generations to eventually maybe get everybody, or we can just convert everybody now. And so he just sends out his troops and starts turning everybody into cyborgs, whether they want it or not. And, and at that point, the other side, the regular people, they hire bounty hunters. So all of our guys come in to, stop them. But even when they get there, they're kind of like, are we doing the right thing? This guy's actually kind of like, he's got a kind of got a point. It's kind of like Thanos in the MCU. It's kind of like,
that's what I was going to say.
He's got a point. People are just starving to death and at war with each other because there's too many people. Maybe wiping out half of them kind of works. It's
kind of like Thanos mixed with the Antichrist, basically.
Kind of. So again, like I don't believe in any villain who just wakes up in the morning. It's like, I'm going to do something evil. Nobody's like that. Nobody's inherently evil, right? Everybody is the hero of their own story. And so, all the villains, throughout the whole series, they're all the heroes of their own story. It's just their story is in conflict with our character stories.
Right. So it's in conflict with somebody else's story, and everybody's story is a heroic story. So
that's right.
In people's minds, basically, they are the heroes, the one that saved the world. And
that's right. I mean, everybody, even Adolf Hitler, in his own mind, was saving the world. He was saving the world for the master race that was supposed to inherit it. That was his thinking. It was messed up, but that was his thinking. He was a hero in his story.
Right. And that to be honest, it's a good concept because we have yet to find stories like that really defines hero. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That really defines a villain. Because if a villain is evil, he's like a hero in a way. You know what I'm saying? nowadays in these comics. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, because if you really look at it, I want to see a villain that's purely evil. That's just naturally evil. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody that's organically evil. You know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's really actually evil instead of, and you want to know the whole backstory of why he's like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right. Yeah.
There's no characters that's born evil.
That's right. Well, it's much more interesting when you're kind of like, they're kind of like have their own kind of nobility to them and that they believe in what they're doing. Right. Exactly. Even if it's completely messed up.
Right.
They believe in what they're doing. And it's much more interesting because it's like, how far is this guy going to go with this?
Right. Right.
What lengths will he take this agenda of his? And, can they have, so I'll digress. One of my stories that I read as a kid was, I think it was Iron Man number 150, where Iron Man and Dr. Doom ended up, in a time accident, ended up in the past in King Arthur's day. And the two of them kind of had to make a pact with each other not to screw each other over so they could get back to the future.
Oh, man.
And Dr. Doom, despite being this diabolically evil guy, still has an honor to him, and that if he gives his word, he's going to keep it.
Right.
And those villains are much more interesting, and Magneto, he's saving the mutant race, and Thanos is saving the universe, and those kind of villains are always just more interesting because they're more relatable, they're more real, and they're more complex, because at times they could actually be on the right side, and we've seen like Doom and Magneto and Thanos, all of them have at times worked with the heroes to stop a greater evil. So those kind of characters are just more, interesting, and even the heroes in these stories aren't all that heroic.
Right. You're right.
They're pretty flawed. They're pretty flawed people.
You're right.
Bruce got anger issues. Rose has trust issues. One guy's got, he's a gambler. Another guy's just an adrenaline junkie. I mean, these guys, and they're all bounty hunters. They're not exactly role models for children. You know what I mean?
Right. They all have their, they're down there. They all have their fuck ups.
That's right. Yeah. They're just a bunch of fuck ups who are trying to do the right things, but and that's really what's interesting, and that's what interests me, is just exploring, these kind of characters and how they struggle through life and how they bounce off each other, and their brokenness just either bouncing off each other or bringing them together, or both at the same time.
Right.
That's often the case.
So how many years have you been doing Brute?
So formally, I've been doing Brute for 2 years. So in 2020 is when we, maybe it's 3. So we actually started just kind of as a trial. We did a short story for an anthology magazine, and that got really good reception. So we continued it. We did like a part 2 and then a part 3. And that's actually collected in issue number 0. So this is a collection of the 3 short stories, which complete one full story that was in the anthology book, Yeet. And then we started the story in earnest with issue number 1. And as I mentioned, this really, it's about Rose, and, shows how she gets abandoned at age 14 and has to learn how to survive, and, meets up with Brute.
I got a question.
Yeah,
How come everybody is? How come everybody's always catching Rose? Always, Rose is always being apprehended.
You know why? Because I tried to write the story Brute so many times,
Right.
and I always struggled with it. It just didn't work.
Right.
And eventually I started with Rose, and it works. And
right.
Although the comic is titled Brute, it's really, she is kind of the core character that makes it work.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like, I don't know, you're probably too young. Do you know Happy Days?
Yeah, I remember Happy Days. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if you're old enough to know Happy Days, you know everybody loved the Fonz, right? The Fonz was a cool character. Everybody turned it on to see the Fonz, but he wasn't the main character. The main character was his regular kind of guy, Richie. You know, that's kind of how this works too. Brute is the Fonzie character. He's the cool character that everyone's going to root for and wants to see succeed. But Rose is really the heart of the story. And because she's the human and the only human, she is the viewer's waypoint into this universe. You know, so they're experiencing and learning about this whole alien universe kind of through her eyes. And, you know, she's, you know, and being, you know, just being a human, you know, she's the most relatable character. And that was the problem with Brute, is A, he's an alien in an alien environment, and B, he's a bit of a, having temper issues and stuff really makes him a bit of a screw up, and not, you know, you kind of want to succeed, but as the central character, you know, you're kind of like, you know what I mean?
Make you just exhale.
Yeah. You just kind of like, inhale, when is this guy going to get his act together? Kind of and you know, because it's not, people with anger issues just aren't that
right,
you know, but it's real, and that's the thing, right? And I mean, there's this great scene that isn't in one of these issue yet, but it's written, where Brute's done something nice for Rose, and she can't process it because anytime anybody has ever done anything nice for her, it was to get something, right? So her mind is just going like, what's he want? What's his end game? What's he after? What does he want from me? And, you know, and it just sets up this scene where, you know, Brute's just in a bar minding his business, and she just comes up to him because she's so frustrated, right? And she's like, what are you doing? Like, what do you want? You know, and you can just see her brokenness, right? And then he's like, what the hell? I just did all this nice stuff for you, and this is how you're treating me. And he loses his temper, right? And you just see their brokenness all over the place. But that's really the beauty of it, because, you know, that's just people,
right?
And they got to work through it,
right?
Because they depend on each other. They're all they have, right? So, you know, but that's the dynamic, is, you know, there's brokenness that is both bringing them together and tearing them apart at the same time.
Okay, cool. I'm starting to love the Brute story itself, because the way you put it makes it exciting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The way you're talking about it makes it exciting and very not hard to read, not hard to understand. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Not everybody can tell the story with their lips. Some people can write the story out, and that's how you understand it, but not everybody can articulate it out. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And when it comes to that, you articulated it, you know, and you wrote it. So it's going to be a great story. You know, I would think with more content, better art. You know what I'm saying? You could take this thing to the next level.
Well, that is our goal. We're looking to do a Kickstarter for issue number 3 soon, and and just kind of keep introducing it to more people, expanding our audience, and just keep improving on all aspects of the comic. And we really kind of believe in it. We think this can really kind of transcend into other media as well.
Right.
But first we gotta kind of just get the word out and get the following, and yeah. So
I would say also, right. Hell yeah. I would say I would say if we could get it on what do you call that? TikTok. If you get it on TikTok and you can get it on Instagram and market it on there and market on TikTok, shit. You become a no, you know what I'm saying? You can make some I'm stuttering, right? You can get make some sales, and you can actually do some damage there.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm doing like a comic convention tour, and it sells well. People love the concept. They're very receptive to it. So, but yeah, it's just very limited still. So yeah, it's really need to get more internet exposure, and we're hoping that with the Kickstarter, we'll be able to expand our audience much more dynamically, and just get a whole lot more people exposed to these characters and this universe and these stories and themes that are pretty much universally appealing, I think.
Right. I think if you add more, what I'm saying, to the story, like shit, man, this thing would be dynamic, because like give it a twist, like a turn, you know what I'm saying? Something that people haven't seen before, you know what I'm saying? Something that people don't see coming, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And you know what I mean? Just like leave them off a cliffhanger, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And yeah, this it's a story that's going down the right path. You know what I'm saying? I think you're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
You're doing an awesome job.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of like a long, on an individual issues, sometimes they do have a cliffhanger ending, but this is really like The Walking Dead, and it's one long story, and I've got, yeah, it would make a good cartoon series. Whistle could, yes,
it would.
Like it in the next life, yes.
It would be like those heavy.
So I already know the end. I know exactly how it ends.
How do I get that?
And I know most of the middle. So it's going to be a 200 to 300 issue maxi series with the definitive, beginning, middle, and end for these characters' journey. And I like those kind of stories, like if you watch the Avatar cartoons, I really admired that series, because not only did they tell a lot of tight story and it was great action, but it was one consecutive story, right? They knew where they were ending, they got to the end, and they ended it. There was just a handful of fluff issues, fluff stories where just to pad the season out, but mostly every story in that season just took you from point A to point B, and then that was done. They were done telling it, and they ended it. And then a few years later, they did a sequel with a different character, Legend of Korra. But, that's kind of what I'm going for, in that, this is a story of these characters' lives and their journey from starting off with very brokenness to becoming, redeemers, being redeemed and becoming saviors. And how do they get from point A to point B?
Right, true that. Brute gives me Futurama vibes. You know what I'm saying? Because it has the Futurama mixed with what's that Lilo and Stitch kind of thing. You know what I mean? Lilo and Stitch, Futurama mixture. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
I like.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and as far as like um, the world, the alien design. One of my philosophies is I wanted to get away from what you see all the time, which is, I call like the Star Trek aliens, where it's just a person in makeup. It's like every alien you see in Star Trek and virtually everyone you see in Star Wars are just people in makeup or with prosthetics or, a little more elaborate in Star Wars. But they're all still people. And I'm like, if you look in nature, how many different creatures on this earth walk on 2 feet? Think about it.
Woo, that's a good one.
Right? Humans, penguins, emus, and osteridges.
Bigfoot.
I think there's a couple other ones, but it's like you see my point, right? You got one hand and you're stuck.
Like monkeys and apes.
Yeah, monkeys, like they don't really walk. Apes walk on all fours generally. Monkeys don't. Monkeys do, but they're mostly in the trees. So if that is the norm here, why wouldn't that be the norm everywhere, right? So my philosophy is there really should not be a lot of bipedal aliens around. So I try to everybody's having 2 arms and 2 legs is an exception. So most aliens are going to have multiple arms or multiple legs or both or wings or all kinds of just completely different. So of course, like this issue here, this character, he's obviously kind of a crystal character, right? So we play with, and of course with the bad guy, looks more like a crab. He's not really a crab. He's just more crab-like, and so I just look for nature, right, and just try to take from here and here and here and blend stuff together and make it alien, because really aliens should be alien. People shouldn't all act and look and think like human beings, because why would they?
I mean to be honest, we don't. Some of us, majority of people don't even know what aliens look like.
Nobody does, right? There's no reason they would look like us. That's the thing. Now, from a practical standpoint, enough of them have to look like us and act like us for a reader to relate. If all of them were like completely alien, you would be like, I don't get it, So you have to keep it at least relatable enough for people to understand and be able to relate to the characters. But I wanted to get away from those kind of Star Trek aliens and really make it a much more dynamic and interesting universe.
Right. So, okay. When it comes to the alien part, when you look at all the characters, right, that you put out, what was it? The villains that you wanted to make aliens, or was it the heroes you wanted to make aliens?
So here, this is another thing I'm breaking from all sci-fi tradition. In this galaxy, like usually pretty much anything, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever, humans are the saviors of the galaxy. The humans are the ones that get all the other races to come together and form a federation of which humans are in charge. Mass Effect kind of broke that mold a bit, but I take it even further. So here humans are the most recent addition to the Galactic Society. They're the new kids on the block. They don't have very good, warp engines yet. They take them hundreds of years to get anywhere with their warp drives. But humans came in with, hundreds of years of their own self, glorifying mindsets that they're going to save the universe. And they've just become a joke to everybody. Everybody. And one of the early issues, like Rose is in a police station and the cop goes, "Wait a second, you're a human? Hey, everybody, stop what you're doing." This is a cop station, so they're all like processing criminals and everything. He's like, "Stop what you're doing. You can all go home, take the rest of the day off. We have a human here. The galaxy is saved." Because that's everybody's impression of a human. It's like they're a joke. So nobody takes humans seriously here. And there aren't really many humans in the galaxy because they don't have the warp technology to get anywhere yet. Where other races can travel from here to here in a few days or a few weeks, it takes them hundreds of years still. So Rose is really the only human in most of these stories. And meeting another human is a very rare event for her.
Right.
Which really makes you feel the loneliness that she has when she gets stranded in space, because there's no humans to help her. She is stuck in a completely alien environment and has to somehow, survive on her own.
Right. So when it comes to, will we see the Rose spinoff?
I think I'm not going to say no to that. That would kind of be like Wolverine and the X-Men finally getting his own series, which of course happened. So it could happen in the future. She certainly can hold her own title.
Right.
The only thing is, I would want to try to avoid a situation where what's happening in their solo series doesn't really make sense compared to what's happening in the team series. You know what I mean? So I am intentionally leaving pockets of time, Brut's early years, the later years after the end of the story, and some, other pockets for other authors to come in and tell their own stories in this playground, if they want. And, kind of like what you see with Star Wars, where, you got like stories about thousands of years before and in between the movies and stuff like that. So I'm kind of intentionally building it out that way. So there's those opportunities for other people to come in and tell those stories. And maybe some of those will be Rose stories. Absolutely. And in fact, there's from the time she's 14 to 24, she is on her own. So there's actually a huge opportunity to do Rose stories for that period of her life.
Right. So I got a good question. Will we see Brute merchandise in the future?
Yes. I'm just declaring that and manifesting it. Yes, you will see Brute merchandise, T-shirts, nobody has a lunch pail anymore, I don't think. Lunchbox, but you'll see Brute merchandise. Yeah, probably stuffed toys for the kids, but stuff for the adults too. Nice, those nice ceramic figures you see for like $500 and
Right.
Yeah.
So where do you see the Brute, series taking off?
Well, I'm thinking, as we're going, we're slowly building up a following. I'm hoping with Kickstarter we can really kind of turbocharge that a bit. And I'm looking at doing something like webtoons to introduce a younger crowd to it, because I find the younger people, they're not buying this format. They're reading it online, and they're not reading. And if they're reading it online, they're reading it this way, and this vertical format that you get on webtoons and tapas and these websites. So it's a very different market than the old traditional market that I grew up with. So it's how do I appeal to, or how do I get it? I'm not worried about the appeal. The appeal's there. It's how do I get it in front of them so that they find it. And,
right.
Yeah.
So okay, what have you been doing with? I think you should come out with a villain. What are the villains' names?
George and Lenny, the initial ones. Yeah.
I think you should come up with a George and Lenny spinoff, telling their story.
Good. They're interesting characters.
Yeah, and you know what? The George and Lenny, you can tell their stories in a default level, meaning like tell it in their way of how they thought they was the heroes, and how, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Instead of how people do it, where like they'll speak about how what they did was bad and everything. Well, let's speak about how where they came from, what prompted them to do the stuff that they did, and what made them think that it was good.
It's not illegal for them.
Exactly.
For them, what they're doing isn't against the law. It's not a crime.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I mean, they're an interesting couple, George and Lenny, because George is really, Lenny is not very bright. He's a little slow, and George has a soft spot for Lenny, and George really kind of looks after him. So George is the brains of the operation, Lenny is the bronze. Kind of scenario.
Basically, Lenny manipulates George, basically.
Well, yeah, George manipulates Lenny, but I mean, George cares for him, right?
Right.
And Lenny is like one of the most loyal, people you will ever meet. So anything George asks him to do, he's going to do it. He will probably do it wrong and piss George off, but he's going to do his best. And so they are an interesting couple of characters that, yeah, you could absolutely tell some nice stories with them.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it'd be awesome, because at least you're getting the most out of all your characters before introducing new characters. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At least you're getting people to know who these characters are without stuffing them down people's throats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's like, for example, like nobody really knows about the villains of Superman, really. Like, they know about Lex Luthor, but what other villains that they know about that is really prevalent in the Superman story?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think a lot of the villains are going to be just as interesting, if not more interesting, characters than some of the heroes. And really, a hero is only as good as their villains. And you look at like Batman. One of the best things about Batman is his rogues gallery. He's got such a great lineup of villains he goes against. Spider-Man 2's got a great lineup of villains. But there's so many, good characters that really don't have any good villains. Like, you think of like Iron Man, you might be able to name off a couple of villains, but they're pretty generic. They're pretty generic villains. So yeah, I think it's really important to have great, interesting villains, because that makes the whole series, much more enjoyable. Because really, nobody would have gone seeing the second Thor movie if Loki wasn't in it.
Right. Because I like Loki. Loki is a low key gangster. You know what I'm saying? Low key. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, in the first two Thor movies, Loki is a much more interesting character than Thor is.
Exactly. Loki is like more like the Owen Hart versus Bret Hart type thing. Bret is like the main guy. And Owen Hart took the backseat to him.
Right.
Yeah, stuff like that. But Owen Hart died. I understand. But you get what I'm saying. You get exactly what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But I think that Lenny and George should have a big part in the story with Brute, man. Because you get a lot of people gravitating to the villains a lot because there's a lot of people that can relate to Lenny and George's story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have some people out there that are handicapped that don't really have the real big learning capabilities, like whether George or Lenny. Lenny, yeah, like Lenny. And you have people that care about those people, like George do Lenny. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you have people like out there that's terrorizing the streets like Lenny and George. You know what I'm saying? And so it appeal to the masses if it's marketed right.
Yeah. And I mean, it is interesting, and it gives you a chance to see somebody in a different light, because, even, the worst person is usually beautiful to their own children. Right.
Right.
So they might go out and do horrible things in the world, but they come home and they love their kids. And so you kind of see that with George and Lenny, and that George might go and do some horrible things, but then he loves Lenny and he looks after Lenny, and so you kind of respond to that because, here's his soft side of this, otherwise character who might otherwise be, just doing some terrible stuff to make a profit.
Right. And that is a thing that you can really, really, really do. You know what I'm saying? Because if you really, really take it to the next level with book 3, take it to the next level, like set some goals for yourself, some goals that is reachable, but hey, if you want to set some goals like if you want to set some goals, some big goals, go ahead. The sky's the limit, man. The heavens.
I've got some big goals. I've got this whole story I want to tell. So that's goal number 1 is get to the end of this story, because it's a beautiful story. And the next goals would be to get it into other medias, to get it into a cartoon or a movie. And then merchandise is, I'm not going to complain about merchandise royalties. Let me tell you, I will take those. But my main goal is the story. I want to tell this story because, it's, I think there's, to me, there's a lot of stories out now, like The Walking Dead or The Boys, which, absolute respect to, the creators of those and all the writers that work on them and everything, and they're awesome, but they kind of plumbing the worst parts of humanity for shock value and, their story. And I'm kind of taking it from a different angle in that I'm taking characters who are pretty flawed and have some pretty bad ways about them, but the journey is to redemption, to see them become better people and not to see how horrible human beings can be, because there's really enough horribleness in the world already.
Right. Because we all could be horrible too.
We're all,
Even if we do good, we still can do some shitty shit. You
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, hey, shit happens.
it
You live
happens.
and you learn. But
Mhm.
man, how many do you see this as an ongoing series or just a 5 book series or just a straight shot?
I'm looking at somewhere between 200 to 300 issues.
So basically ongoing, basically.
So it's an ongoing, but it's got a definitive end.
Okay.
And once we get to the end, it's done. That's it.
Right. True that. So what character that you in your heart and your soul is what character is mocked up in your personality? What character is
It's a
basically
reflection of me.
yeah, sorry about reflection of you. I tried to go too intricate with this question.
Yeah. To a degree, all of them. But Brute and Rose, I think, are both just contain a lot of different aspects of me. Like Rose, I'm always been very independent, doing things my own way, not really wanting to rely on other people, not really trusting that other people will have my best interest at heart. And I would like to think of myself as intelligent. So, those are all kind of key characteristics for her. And like Brute, and like, many of us, I felt like, didn't fit in, struggled with anger issues myself. So, when I'm writing that, I'm writing it from a place of, having been there,
Right.
and having gone through that, and, even though it's really kind of an ugly thing, I, really hoping to write it in a way where, even when you see him at his worst, you're kind of like rooting for him.
Right.
Because, if you see somebody having like just going off and being destructive and harmful, it's really easy to hate on them. But, when you know the heart of that person and you understand the pain that's really behind that, it helps, it helps you to really kind of say, yeah, I kind of get it and I feel for them, stop being an idiot, get your crap together, man. Let's go. You're better than this. Let's do this. Come on.
Right. But I think, us putting our selves in our books and our parts of our lives in the book in our stories it gets the people to get to know the people behind the stories. And that's what I keep trying to tell people. When you're buying a comic book, you're buying the person behind the character, book and the story. Mm-hmm. You're not buying the character. You know what I'm saying? Although you may look at the character, but you're buying the person, and you're. That's why I said when it comes to fans and when it comes to followers, fans would just buy the book because they like the character. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But followers, they will invest in the person and buy your book and get to know the character and the person behind the character.
And really the best stories, real stories, not just, well-structured stories. But the real stories, the author is really bearing a bit of their soul. And I think one of the most profound examples of that is The Crow. And if you haven't read The Crow, go and read The Crow by James Barr, because it's incredible. They made several movies from it and a TV show. But there's nothing like the book, because he wrote it he wrote it as therapy to get over the real world event of his girlfriend or wife being gang raped and killed. So when it's happening in the comic, and the story of the Crow is he's been brought back from the dead to get revenge, but after a while he kind of gets tired of what he's doing and he's losing motivation. So to re-motivate him to keep going after these guys and keep getting it, he's reliving this thing in his head of what happened to his girlfriend, right? And he's cutting himself to kind of like bring back enough pain that he can stay in this world and get revenge. And as he's doing that, you see the layers of this character is reenacting this pain as the author is reenacting this pain, so that you, as a reader, can be in that moment with them, and that's it's just kind of like, really kind of hits you. And that's why it's been such a classic and, been remade so many times. And I love some of the lines out of there are just like classic lines. So, but that's real art, is, the artist, the writer, or the talent behind it, just bearing a bit of their soul.
Bruce Lee played the original Crow, I think. Bruce Lee's son. Bruce Lee's
son. Yeah, that's right. Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee, played the Crow, and of course that was tragic. But yeah, it's a good movie too. But not read the book. Read the book. The book. Yeah. Yeah, man. Like, that's why when I do Jarhead, I put more strength, more. You know what I'm saying? That's therapy from what I've been through. You know what I'm saying? That's you know what I'm saying? That's a lot of stuff that you're putting through, stuff that you're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? And like your stuff, you're dealing with stuff that you've been through and what you've gone through. Because we've all been through some stuff. And really, the one thing that unites all of us that we all identify with is pain.
Hell yeah.
Because we've all been made to suffer at some point in our lives. We've all been through some kind of trauma. So, pain is one place where we can all kind of relate and feel, get the feels, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And that's the amazing thing is that we as people, we begin to be afraid to put ourselves in these comics and in these stories, because not a lot of people will understand it if it's not authentic, if it's not original. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is, if you're doing a story and you see that is done over and over and over again, it's going to be compared to other stories constantly. Yeah. But if it's something that nobody has ever seen before, if it's something that nobody has really like got a hold of, it's not going to be compared to anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I hate being compared. I hate when my characters being compared to Punisher and Spawn and all them characters. I hate it sometimes because it makes it feel like it doesn't have its own identity. You know what I'm saying? And all of the time you hear people saying, "Oh well, it's Spawn vibes," and when is these stories going to have Jarhead vibe? You know what I mean?
Just keep going at it. And
I know that. I know.
By the time your kids are around, everyone's going to be like, it's kind of like Jarhead, don't you think?
I feel what you're saying. No. I just feel that, if we as people begin to build our legacies and our longevity will build itself. You know what I'm saying? And if we just be patient with it and watch it grows. You know what I'm saying? Keep watering that plant. Keep watering that plant that you plant that seed in. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Keep watering that seed because it's going to grow sooner or later.
Keep chasing those dreams.
Exactly.
Keep those dreams alive, man.
You know, and that's why I feel that people need these stories to get through the day or get through what they're being going through.
Absolutely.
You know, like I that's how I feel, you know, because I too can, you know, relate to what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? I too can understand what you're saying because we all go through shit. Every last one of us. Ain't nobody can say that they haven't been through nothing.
That's exactly.
Ain't nobody say nothing. Ain't nobody say that. Ain't nobody say they never.
They're probably lying because they just don't want to deal with it themselves.
Exactly. They just want to be a goody old two shoe, goddamn it. No. But like I think that, you know, we can do a lot with these books, with these stories, you know, what's your story, my story, all these other guys in the comic book industry. We could do a lot with it if we just stick to it.
Yes.
Stick to what we're doing and keeping because indie comics, we need to build that up. It's not going to build itself.
Yeah.
And while with everybody, you know, with some people going over to the mainstream, what can you say, you know?
Making a living.
Hey, making a living.
I don't you know what, I'm not gonna like knock anybody's desire to make a living and pay, you know, feed their family. So,
hell yeah.
You know, if you can work at Marvel and DC and feed your family, do it.
By all means. You know?
But at the same time, it's good to still do something on the side.
Exactly. It's good to build your own legacy as well. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Build your own legacy and tell your own story.
Yeah. Because because eventually, and I'm going to say it like this, you know, you're going to want to do it anyway. You're going to get tired of doing other people's work.
Yeah.
I know a lot of artists that told me this. That I know a lot of artists that's been through this. So I understand. I know. But anyways, is that you got there's a segment in the show where I give you 60 seconds to promote your product and give advice to all the people that's coming into the industry and to all the people that's doing their projects now that's just having a hard time. Just continue to do their projects, the dream.
Okay. So first off, for everybody who's still watching at this point, thank you, bless you, I love you. Check out brutecomic.com. You can get the first issue downloaded for free at brutecomic.com/free, or on Facebook, facebook.com/brutecomic. And just join us on this fun adventure. And if you're somebody who's looking to get into the industry, my advice for you is it is very hard. It is very hard. If you're looking to make money, forget about it. Not that it's impossible. You're just going to have to work very long and very hard. And even like somebody a big name like Brian Bendis spent 10 years doing little indie comics before he ever got into Marvel. So if you're going to do comics, do it because you have to. Do it because it's burning in you to tell a story and you've got to get it out. And if that's you, then do it. Do it in whatever format works for you. Do it as a webtoons, do it as a print, do it on Kickstarter, but get out there and do it because the world needs more you.
You heard the man. Do it. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for the love. Thank y'all for watching for liking the content. And I love y'all from the bottom of my heart. God bless y'all. Invest and go and buy that Brute character, Brute comics. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be awesome. But thank y'all for watching. I'm out of here. We out of here. Peace. And this is the In Your Face show.
Face.